There's been a terse exchange of words between India and the United Kingdom over comments made by Home Secretary Suella Braverman. The British Member of Parliament, in an interview, voiced concerns about the impending free trade agreement between India and UK that is to be finalized this Diwali, as she believes it could increase immigration. Also, she says that an open border migration policy with the country would be contrary to what the Brexit vote stood for. So there you have Suella Braverman on your screens. Let's put out what she said in the exact words. This is her quote. "Look at the migration in this country. The largest group of people who overstay are Indian migrants. We even reached an agreement with the Indian government last year to encourage and facilitate better cooperation in this regard. It has not necessarily worked very well." So that's the quote playing out on your screens from Suella Braverman. And this statement has drawn sharp reaction from India. Braverman's remarks, in fact, put her at risk of upsetting British Prime Minister Liz Truss as well, who's very keen on signing the deal with India by the end of this month. There are now new concerns that Braverman herself, as a Member of Parliament, has given all indications that there could be a withholding in the cabinet backing for any visa concessions for India as part of the FTA. So negotiations for a free trade agreement between India and UK have formally been launched in 2002 January to double the bilateral trade by 2030. I would request my producer to play out those visuals of the free trade agreement that was launched in January, where you would see Mr. Piyush Goyal and you would see UK representatives. Yes, those are the pictures from January 2022, where the free trade agreement was launched. It was decided that there will be negotiations every 5 weeks and it will conclude ahead of Diwali. Now, this new spanner in the works with Suella Braverman making this statement. The launch of the free trade agreement, like I mentioned, is being seen as a major move since the UK's exit from the European Union in support of free and fair trade in the Indo-Pacific region. So what is FTA? Let's put that out in graphics as well. What exactly is the free trade agreement between India and UK? It is going to boost the total trade by up to 28 billion euros a year by 2035. That's the larger vision. It will increase wages by up to 3 billion euros across the UK. It is expected to be completed this Diwali. But will it now reach its logical conclusion, given that there seems to be a difference of opinion within the UK government? Claims and counterclaims coming in with Suella Braverman's statement. What are the claims that she's making? Free trade agreement can increase immigration. That's her worry. She says it would violate the goals of Brexit. The Brexit vote was not to increase and enhance immigration. Her third claim is the largest overstayers are Indians, which means that the Indians do not honor the visa agreements. Also saying that better cooperation agreement did not work with India last time. What are the counter claims? Let's put out the counter claims as well. What India says is that Braverman's comment is inappropriate. Negotiations are still underway. Action on overstayers always been taken. Also saying that India, in fact, awaits UK's progress on protocol commitments. So that's the larger picture. Let's listen in to what Mr. Pradeep Bagchi had to say earlier, the MEA spokesperson, on Suella Braverman's statement. Let's listen in.
I don't have data on overstayers. Otherwise, I'm not even sure I'd be able to comment on overstays. But whenever there's an Indian citizen abroad, we always strongly encourage legal migration, and if they need to come back, they will come back. But yes, there is a process for that, to have people come back and establish the identity and other elements. So I wouldn't like to comment on that. In any case, I think our High Commission has issued a statement in this regard, which probably has more details regarding this issue. The migration mobility is an important element, and there was an understanding in this regard, which we would expect certainly that both sides would honor it, and we certainly are taking action on our elements, and we would expect the UK side to also show, as our High Commission said, demonstrable actions on that.
Okay, so let me introduce our panelists this evening. Mr. Achal Malhotra joining us, former ambassador Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, former ambassador, also with us. Mr. Rabindra Sachdev, former economy and policy expert. It's good to have you with us, gentlemen. Thanks very much for joining us here. Of course, the big question here is, does this in any way jeopardize the free trade agreement? Is there a message from Suella Braverman that she's not exactly pleased with the way the negotiations are going and the free trade agreement is shaping up? Let's have Mr. Malhotra comment on this first. Good evening, sir. Go ahead.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Well, I think in very recent days, two statements have come from the British government representatives, from the Home Secretary, and the other is from the Trade Secretary.
Yes.
I think even if these statements are meant for the consumption of their domestic constituents, they are not in good taste. They are likely to have some damper on the ongoing processes, and the Trade Secretary appears to be lowering the expectations from the free trade agreement. Anyway, this agreement negotiations are in the final stages, and we have, like in any other free trade area agreement, two concerns, which is apart from the goods, we emphasize on the freer movement of people and also services. I think these are the areas where the Britishers seems to be, or at least the new ministers in Liz Truss's regime, trying to backtrack. I really don't know. The deadline is coming closer. The Prime Minister is very keen. This deadline was set by Boris Johnson, and Truss was also committed to adhering to this. There is even talk that Prime Minister Modi might visit if agreement is finalized. So I hope these kind of statements coming on the eve of such an important deal being negotiated in the two countries. What is the need for that? Even if they are meant for the domestic constituency. Actually, she is trying to tell their own people,
She's referring to the Brexit vote, sir. She's saying that this will hurt, the mandate that was given towards Brexit. So that is one of the arguments that she is, making in support of the statement that she made today.
And also, she is, underestimating the importance of the mobility and migration protocol that we signed last year. If you're not happy with, there is supposed to be a joint working group. You can voice those concerns on these forums. What is the problem? I mean, what is the big deal about it?
Right. So what would you say then, Mr. Ashok Sajanhar? Is this then the free trade agreement, the migration policy running into rough weather? Is this, a lack of consensus within the British government over policies related to India, particularly with regards to migration policy?
Afrida, my own experience while negotiating these free trade deals, and I have done it with the European Union, with the ASEAN, with Thailand, and a number of other countries, and also at the multilateral level. My experience with some of these countries is that, at the last minute, they tend to move the goalpost further so that, they are try to apply pressure on India. But I think these governments and these officials who resort to tactics like this, they should know that at this moment, Britain has come out of the European Union 2 years ago. And it is Britain that really needs this free trade agreement. Of course, India also has gone into these negotiations with goodwill and, to fully determined to have a trade deal by Diwali this year. But it is Britain and, India has signed good trade deals with Australia, with the UAE, and of course, there are other trade deals also in the offing. So here, I see that, this whole thing coming out in the open, if it's a matter of Brexit, Afrida, it is their internal matter as to how do they want to deal with Brexit. It is not for us in India to comment upon that. As far as, this substantive issue, now my own experience has been, and I have looked at a large number of studies, and I have seen there that as far as, because there are different segments that we can deal with as far as immigration is concerned. Now, when I was ambassador to Sweden, the largest number of people coming there and in legal migration are the Indians, and the Swedes are extremely happy with the way the Indians come there, the way they work, and how they abide by the rules and regulations. This is what I have read elsewhere, that even as far as Indian tourists are concerned, they are, when they go out, they observe all the rules, regulations, and they are the highest spenders in any particular country. But, coming back to this FTA would really be dealing with what is called Mode 4 in the General Agreement on Trade and Services, which means people who are going out for short terms, they will go for specific tasks, they will go for specific time period, maybe 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and after that they would revert back to the country. These are not immigrants who are going to go and stay there, and they will all come from very well established companies. For instance, Infosys will send, Wipro will send, KPMG will send, Ernst & Young will send, all these people to do certain specific services that will be rendered there. So there is no hope that, they will become illegal migrants. So for her
there is the data, sir, that the UK Home Office have released, and I was just digging out the numbers, and it says that 20,706 Indians had overstayed their visas, higher than any other nationality. 4,73,600 Indians whose visas were due to expire in 2020. 4,52,894 are known to have left, which means bulk of them, not a bulk of them, of course, a small percentage of them are still back in UK. 4.4% of them, basically by that calculation, have overstayed their visa. So there is some truth. Let's call a spade a spade. There is some truth perhaps in this argument. Yes.
Could I respond to this?
Yes, sir, please.
Because, these might be tourists, and, tourist visas are not covered by FTAs. FTAs cover only the legal migration, as I was saying, those who are, we are talking about mode 4.
Yes, because that distinction is not made. As I said, the UK Home Office has released the statistic without labeling the nature of the visa. Go ahead.
Exactly. FTAs cover only legal migration from a company to company. They will go there, and Robinder will know it very well because, he's dealt with all these things when we are in the United States. And definitely UK is not the place where we have the largest number of such service, temporary service providers. It's the United States, and there we have never had any problem of that.
There are two things that, Suella Braverman is saying, Mr. Rabinder Sachdev, if I can bring you into the conversation. One, that there is an overstaying of the visa issue, and second, that India has not really honored the kind of commitments in the past, and the agreements made around the Migration and Mobility Pact has not really worked out. So therefore, this is, in as many words, expressing her reservations with going ahead with the FTA. And here we have, ironically, an Indian origin British minister, member of parliament, Mr. Sachdev.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Ambassador Sajanhar, and thank you, Ambassador Achal. Wise minds, much more experience than me. But yeah, we share some things, experiences. One, I would look at, Indian origin, 1 point. See, we have to remember that they may be Indian origin, but they are British people now. She's a British citizen. So for her, Britain is the country. That is one. And secondly, she will look out for her country's interests and her party's or her own political interest. So this statement of hers that, we did not go to we did not have Brexit in order to have more immigrants coming in, kind of a thing, right? Yes, so that is in a way playing to the domestic politics, but it also identifies something that maybe I think as Ambassador Malhotra or Ambassador Sajanhar pointed out, there could be, or you pointed out, there's a split maybe within the UK cabinet, because Liz Truss very much wants a free trade agreement, right?
Yes.
Now, the Home Secretary, maybe she has doubts because of the immigration issue. You see, the advantage for Liz Truss is that they do not have the UK-US free trade agreement coming anytime soon. They've given up hope of that, right? Now, India is a huge market and a growing market. Okay, so if an FTA with India opens up, it opens up a huge scope in terms of growth of trade. And I mean, they have this vision 2030 between India and Britain, which is $100 billion doubling of the trade by 2030, right? Whereas the UK free trade with Australia, they already are fairly, in harmony, their standards and their tariffs and all. How much would a free trade with Australia yield an additional benefit? It will be incremental. Whereas with India, it will be a quantum jump for them.
Then
right?
how is it? Then how is it? That Ms. Braverman is serving her own country's interest, because then that is contradictory. Because what you are saying is the UK needs this trade deal as much as India does, which Ambassador Sajjan also mentioned. Then how is that serving her nation, her own interests first?
Okay, maybe it's the ideology. You see, the ideology of the Brexiters, that big picture, I mean, that's how she's positioning it. That, this was the ideology due to which we undertook Brexit. And that's appealing to her political constituency. With regards to India, by the way, for India, it will be a big one or a good one also, because this will be the first FTA India will sign with the G7 economy. We've signed, with the United Arab. For several years, we were kind of not very happy to sign. We were avoiding. We were kind of not sure. But recently, now we've kind of had a relook. So we've signed with the Arab Emirates. We've signed with Australia. And earlier, about 10 odd years ago, we'd signed with Korea and Japan. Now, the lesson for India, the reason we held back on the FTAs, as Ambassador Sajjan and Achal Malhotra would much more be able to articulate, is that when we looked at our CEPAs with Korea and Japan, we found that, overall imports have grown much into India rather than what we expected, higher than, and our exports have really not gone up that well, right, on that side. So that's a lesson for our negotiators, interlocutors. Now, India's interest in this British FTA is definitely the services sector. Out of the 50 billion, about 35 billion is services and 15 billion is goods, right? So services sector, which then links into, as our colleagues are saying, into the issue of mobility and visas, right?
Yes.
The other sector for India, which we really want to open up more, is the labor-intensive industries, the tariffs going down, leather exports, textiles, or whatever which is more labor-intensive, so that it gets the pounds and sterlings at the same time, so it creates more number of jobs in India. So that's what's India's, take out there. And that's what the British one now.
But then, now the question is, what can India do about it? Ambassador Malhotra, does India have that bargaining power, or do you think it should be now left to how Liz Truss convinces her own ministers and members of parliament?
No, Adrila, I think the Home Secretary has taken a very narrow view, purely from the point of immigration, and FTA is much larger. It's much larger objectives. And in any case, the issues related to migration and mobility are covered by the protocol, the MOU, which we signed in May last year. And there also she has expressed a little bit of reservation that it's not working well, to which our Indian High Commission in London has retorted and said we are addressing each and every issue, each and every case where you say that there is an overstay. And India has also said that there are many areas where we are expecting progress from the British side.
Okay.
But as far as the trade is concerned, I'm a little more concerned with the statement which was made by their trade minister. She was addressing a conference of the Conservative seminar, where she has tried to underplay the importance of free trade agreements. She said free trade, and calling it free is also a misnomer. According to her, they should be called freer trades, and say in the context of India-UK free trade agreement, we are not trying to create a common market or a borderless, movement between the people of the two countries. I think largely they are addressing to their domestic constituencies.
Yes.
And the final, that's why our Indian
so
side
you're
has
saying part
not
of it
made
is
any
rhetoric. It's not really convincing that it serves UK's interests better not to go ahead with this. And of course, there's a convergence of all the three speakers that they are catering to the domestic audience in this.
Yeah.
Ambassador Sajjan?
No, absolutely. I think so. You see, because when she's also talking about that it is, it will not be free immigration. Of course, we are not expecting free immigration to take place. We are not expecting a situation, Afrida, which pre-existed as far as the United Kingdom and Europe was concerned when UK was a part of the European Union. that you have the Polish plumbers and the Lithuanian dentists, etc., coming freely and settling down there and offering their services. Of course not. We are not expecting that, but we are expecting what happens, that there will be that there will be easier, that there will be quicker decision on when our service providers, particularly in the IT sector, in some of the other sectors, we have such excellent performance as far as startups are concerned. So when these people are required to go there and deliver their services, they will not have to wait for visas for a year or 2 year stretch. It will be done much more quickly, and it will be a win-win situation. That is what a free trade area agreement is supposed to be. Now those who are trying to raise these absolutely frivolous issues of free agreement and freer agreement, that's a matter of philosophy of that. And, that is not, this is not the place. But basically here it is, you lessen the tariffs, you agree on standards, whether it is goods or services or it is investments, and so that there is a much greater exchange of goods and services, which is beneficial for both sides. It cannot be one way, that
Yes.
one side has
I think that's
everything.
the buzzword then. It has to be, after all, a win-win situation. And these reservations have been expressed not just by Suella Braverman, like we just pointed out. There were others as well to make these noises. But let's see how it goes, and let's see how India responds to these statements. Of course, we've already heard Arindam Bagchi there saying that well, that is as per the wisdom of Suella Braverman, but then both countries are still engaging. The process of negotiation is still on. We'll have to see where that goes. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Ambassador Achal Malhotra, Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, and Robindra Sachdev.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's